Hello, welcome to One Man's Faith today. My name is Neal Owen. Glad to have you with me as we're going to look at God's Word. And as you can tell by my background, I'm feeling a little festive and Christmassy. So I want to take the next 2 weeks just to look at Christmas things. And today, this may seem a little weird, but I want to look at a different festival that occurs around the same time as Christmas, and this year actually falls during the Christmas week. And that is the Jewish celebration of Hanukkah. Now you may say, Neal, why would you even want to go there? Well, several reasons. But one of them is Jesus celebrated Hanukkah. I don't know if you realize that or not. But in John 10, it says that at that time, the Feast of Dedication took place at Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the portico of Solomon. Now, the Feast of Dedication is Hanukkah. It's called the Feast of Dedication. It's called the Festival of Lights. So it falls during this time, and it happens to say that it was winter. Now, you know, I was going to talk about this next week, but I'll go ahead and throw it out since he says it here. You know, we read that the shepherds were in the fields with their flocks by night. Well, they don't do that in the wintertime. It's too cold. As a matter of fact, the temperature in Israel, here, let me get to my handy-dandy little app. The temperature in Jerusalem right now is 56 degrees. And it is going into the lower 40s and 30s at night. It's basically the same type of weather we have. So you don't go out and stay at night. But that's what it was. It was winter. It was winter and the Feast of Dedication. That's another indication because of when Hanukkah falls. Now, oh no. Okay. What's the deal about Hanukkah? What is it? Well, you know, there's several ways that you can say this word. The actual term is Chanukah. Chanukah. We've changed a little bit, and we call it Hanukkah, which is written as Hanukkah. I'm not sure why we did that, but Hanukkah and Chanukah are the same thing, which is the Festival of Lights or the Feast of Dedication. And it started back at that time that we call there are 400 what we call silent years from the end of Malachi to the start of Matthew chapter 1. There's 400 years there. And they're called the silent years because they say God didn't speak or do anything during those 400 years like he had been doing. He was speaking to the prophets. He was telling the prophets what to do, what to tell the other nations, what Israel was supposed to do. But during this time, there fell a silent period for the most part. Now, we're going to see in the story here that God did speak and God moved during this time. But during this time period, Israel was under the Syrian Greek Empire. If you remember, once they came out of the Persian Empire, they were never free again. They were still under, I guess you could say, the headship of a larger empire. Eventually, it fell to the Roman Empire. That's who, in a sense, held the deed to Israel during the time of Jesus. But before then, during that 400-year period, and before and after, it was the Syrian Greek Empire that dominated that whole land. Antiochus III, who was the king of Syria, waged war against the king of Egypt and took over the possession of the land of Israel. They were fighting over it for some reason. Egypt wanted it, so did Syria. Syria battled Egypt, and Syria won. And when Antiochus took over, Antiochus III took over, he favored Israel. And so he allowed them to have their privileges and kind of run their country the way they wanted to. If you remember, Israel was more or less led by the priesthood, okay? But later on, he tired of them, and he got kind of taken by the Roman Empire, and he wasn't a very nice guy. When he died, his son Seleucus IV took over, and he oppressed the Jews. During that time, in order to appease the Greeks, the Romans, and the Syrians, there arose a group of Jews that favored acting like Greeks. They're called the Hellenistic Jews. And we see this even as Jesus comes in the picture. Some of the Hellenistic Jews are mentioned in the Gospels. But the high priest at the time, who was Yochanan, saw that it was a problem. It was going to be a problem because they were in a sense polluting their own religion by trying to be Greek, because they didn't just try to hang on to the Torah and what the Torah said to do, but they wanted to move more toward a Greek lifestyle, which included Greek gods. And so they were trying to move in that direction. And so the high priest was opposed to any attempt to try and introduce the Greek and Syrian customs into the land of Israel. It's interesting because Israel has been able to stay, we can say, pure since its inception. Even when it left, when they were deported to the Babylonian regime, they stayed grouped together. Now, the others of the 10 tribes that were dispersed, well, they didn't. They didn't hold on to their beliefs and the Torah as much as this group did that came out of Judah, that was called the Kingdom of Israel. The Kingdom of Judah. But they stayed together, and they went into captivity. They came out of captivity still with their beliefs and practices, and the Jewish people, for the most part, have stayed that way. Even during this time, they wanted to not diminish what they believed and how they operated and how they worshipped. So, because of the Roman Empire being now over Syria, Seleucus had to pay tribute to the Romans, and he didn't like that. And so he found out that there was money kept at the temple. It was a half shekel kind of temple tax that was used to do the upkeep and all for the temple. Well, Seleucus found out about this, and he went after it. He sent his general to get the money. The general goes, he approaches the high priest, Jehoiakim, and Jehoiakim says, don't go in there. It's not going to be any good. Don't you try and take God's money. Well, the general said, I'm taking the money. And so it said, he entered into the gate of the sanctuary, and suddenly he became pale with fright. And he fainted and fell to the ground. And history says that after he came to, he did not try to enter into the gates of the temple ever again. I think an angel was standing there looking at him. There's nothing that says that, but for the man to all of a sudden become pale with fright after he says, I'm going into a temple, I'm going to get that money, something happened. And maybe it was the same angel that came against Balaam. Don't know. But something was there that this general, this was the general of the army. Most of them aren't very fearful. But whatever he saw, it really frightened him. And he says, I'm not going back to that temple and get that money. So after that, a short while later, Seleucus dies, and Antiochus IV begins to reign over Syria. Now, he was a tyrant, and he called himself Epiphanes, which means the God's beloved. Well, some of the people didn't like him, and so they actually called him Epiphanes, which means madman, because that's the way he acted. And so he tried to, if I can use the term Greekify, he tried to Greekify the Jews. He wanted to mix. He wanted to bring a unity into his region, and so he tried to do it by having a common religion and culture. Okay, now we got to take a break, so let's just stop right there and take that break. Get a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.